Hey, what's up, bank breakers, coin flippers? Welcome back to Life is a Gamble. And let's start covering what happened last week. Let's start with the NFC. The Cowboys hosted the Giants. They were 3.5-point favorites, and they covered that. They did work. The Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, who traveled to Washington as 3.5-point underdogs, and they did work. That surprised not only me, that surprised a lot of people. Very few people picked Philadelphia to win that game. Vegas even dropped Philadelphia Eagles from 50-1 to win the Super Bowl to 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. That's how you know a game is really a surprise with the outcome. Okay, let's go into the NFC North, where the Vikings went to Detroit. They were 5.5 dogs, but I thought they'd cover it, and they did not. The Lions look pretty good. I gotta give them credit. The Bears hosted the Bengals. The Bengals were 3.5-point underdogs, but I told you the Bengals would not lose by more than 3.5, and they did not. So they covered for us. That was good news. And then finally, Green Bay Packers went out to San Francisco. They were 3.5 underdogs. They lost by 6. And so we picked the 49ers. That went well for us. Let's go over to the NFC South, where I told you that the Falcons would not dominate the Saints. Saints covered for us, and that went well. The Panthers, I said they played good defense, and I thought they would be able to cover the 3.5 that Seattle was being given. And they did really all the way up until the end when Russell Wilson threw up a pass down 7-5. That game was so defensively close. Anyway, Seattle won that 12-7. They got kind of lucky on the road, but you know, it is what it is. That's the gambling game. Sometimes you'll get frustrated with games like that. And then finally, Tampa Bay, they went up to play the New York Jets. I was surprised that Tampa Bay let that game get away from them on a stupid penalty. That's usually a very disciplined team. Sometimes, you know, this betting can be very frustrating. So Tampa Bay, they lost for us. Okay, out in the NFC West, the team we didn't cover was Arizona and the St. Louis Rams. I told you Arizona and St. Louis was going to play close, and that if the Rams won, they would only win by a field goal, and that's just how that went down. So the Arizona Cardinals covered the 3.5 they were being given, and kudos to them. All right, so that is the NFC. Let's go over to the AFC, where stuff went really bad for us. And let's pick it up with New England. Man, New England 9.5-point favorites over the Bills. They didn't cover. Their offense and the receivers and Tom Brady don't look quite in sync just yet. So they didn't cover for us. And then the Dolphins, they went into Cleveland, won 23-10. I thought Cleveland would play a lot better this year. I mean, they got a good defense, but they still, Brandon Whedon, still bad. And North Turner can't help him. North Turner might be a little bit overrated right now. Last couple teams he was with, not good, so I have to be aware of that. All right, the Steelers, they played the Titans, and the Titans were 7.5-point dogs, and they won by 7. I said don't bet this game. It's just, you can't tell what the Steelers are going to do. They don't have a deep wide receiver. Their running game is kind of suspect, and their offensive coordinator, I'm not a big fan of Todd Haley. So I'm going to just stay away from the Steelers probably for the rest of the year until they have some sure wins headed their way. And then let's go with the Indianapolis Colts. They faced the Raiders. They were 9.5-point favorites. They won the game. We all knew they'd win the game, but they did not cover. I was surprised at how well the Raiders played. The Jaguars played the Kansas City Chiefs. I told you they were just a matchup of 2-4 teams from the year before, but the Chiefs are a good team disguised under a 2-14 record from the year before, and they dominated Jacksonville on the road. And I said they would, and they did. So that game went pretty much as expected. The Houston Texans played the San Diego Chargers, and they could have covered their game if they would just started playing in the first quarter instead of the fourth. We had the Denver Broncos run roughshod over the Ravens, just touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. After 2 bad calls, the Ravens defense fell apart. And so leadership matters. Ed Reed and Ray Lewis would have held that team together, and there's no way the Broncos get off like that. And that is the AFC. As you can see, we went 7-9, and we will try to do better for you this week. Okay, this week, let's look at these picks against the Delaware Sportsbook and their parlay card. All right, so the Patriots are 13.5-point favorites over the Jets. Go with the Jets. It's a short week. Usually games in short weeks don't have a lot of blowouts. It's going to be closer. So I'm going to go with the Jets to cover 13.5. The Eagles will play a 1 o'clock game versus the Chargers, and they will be 7.5-point favorites. Why did I bring up the time? It means the Chargers are going to be playing on East Coast time at 1 o'clock. That's usually a bad sign for West Coast teams. I'm going with the Eagles. Ravens, 7.5 over the Browns. Both of these teams lost. I do believe in the Ravens, and I think they're going to play better this week. And I'm jumping off the Browns bandwagon because Wheaton still hasn't proven himself, and North Turner seems to be overrated when it talks about offensive gurus these days. So I'm going with the Ravens. Texans, 9.5 over the Titans. That seems like a lot. It seems like a lot, especially for a team that didn't play 4 quarters last week. And the Titans pulled off the win. This is also a divisional game. Seems like a lot. I'm going to go with the Titans here. Okay, Colts, 3.5 over the Dolphins. The Colts are playing at home. The Dolphins, this is their second road game in a row. Okay, I'm going to go with the Colts to win this one. 3.5. The spread's a little bit smaller. I think that's more manageable for Andrew Luck. Panthers, 2.5-point favorites over the Bills in Buffalo. I'm a believer in the Panthers. I think they win this game. Falcons, 7.5-point favorites over the Rams. I like the Rams to cover this, but I do think the Falcons win the game. Packers, 7.5-point favorites over the Redskins. I like the Packers. Their offense looks good, and I tell you what, RG3 doesn't look like he's over his whole entire knee thing, and the offense doesn't look in sync enough to hold off the Packers at all. So moving on, the Chiefs and the Cowboys. This is a tough one. I already said I think the Chiefs are a playoff team, but I also think the Cowboys are a playoff team, especially if their defense is going to play the way they did against the Giants. Now, their offense didn't look good, and this is a week I think they improve on that. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys on the road. You don't have to follow me on this one, and that might be because I'm a little biased. I am a Cowboy fan. Now, Bears, 6.5 points over the Vikings. I like the Bears. I like what they did with their offense this year, and Christian Ponder hasn't proven he's going to add anything to the Adrian Peterson train. Saints will be 3.5-point favorites over the Buccaneers. I like the Saints. The Bucs played tough, but the Saints look good at home against the Falcons. And so they're going to go on the road to Tampa Bay. I think they can win that game. Lions will be traveling to Arizona to play the Cardinals. I mean, I'm going to pick against the Lions. Not that I'm not sold on how good the Lions are, especially defensively. They play real well. But I do think the Cardinals are a better team, and they're going to win their home opener by more than 1.5. So, I mean, it's such a small spread. I'm just picking the winner, and that's going to be the Cardinals. The Raiders will be playing the Jaguars. Both of these teams are teams in transition, but the Raiders look a little bit more on the same page than the Jaguars do. And the Jaguars, they're probably far away, probably 2 years away from being a good team. So the Broncos are playing the Giants. The Giants are getting 5.5 points at home. That is going to be a tough one. This game is going to go. I'm not going to pick against the Broncos twice. Peyton Manning looked too good. Plus, they had 10 days rest. So I'm going to go with the Broncos. And I'd like to see the Giants start off 0-2. So there you go. Seahawks will be hosting the 49ers. I don't bet against the Seahawks at home. I'm not going to start today. The 49ers go up there and win, then they really are going to dominate the NFC. But if they lose a game in their division, this has got to be one. They got to split with Seattle because these two teams are the class of the NFC West right now. So, and then Monday night, we got the Bengals, and they're going to be giving 7.5 to the Steelers, but I still like the Bengals in that one. The Steelers, they didn't look good on offense. They lost their center so they're not going to even be able to run as well. Their rookie running back, who they want to start, he won't be available, so they got to go with Jonathan Dwyer, who they just picked up, Isaac Redmond, who did not look good last week, and then they don't have a deep threat, so their offense is in a little bit of trouble, but their defense is good, but so is Cincinnati, so I'm going with the Bengals. So those are my picks this week. You can find me at /Twitter, comicanton on Twitter, /comicanton on Twitter, and Facebook /comicanton on Facebook. Hit me up. Let's talk some football. This whole studio thing is basically because I'm in Atlantic City this week doing some poker and working over at the Tropicana. So come by and see us if you like. All right. Thanks again for joining Life is a Gamble. My name is Anton Shuford. Time to adjust the gambling hat and go make some money.